The 2A world is full of crazy creatures. There's liars, there's cheats, and there's those that bring us joy. We're going to visit people and stories that accomplish all three of these tasks, maybe a little bit more. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Range Minded Podcast, episode 265, Liars, Cheats, and Happiness. Enjoy. Welcome back to the Range Minded Podcast. My name is Steve, your ever humble host. I'm going to do my best to stay awake, not to sound sleepy, and to keep this thing moving right along. I don't know how long this episode is going to be. Honestly, I have no idea how long any of my episodes are going to be until I'm done editing, which I hate editing, by the way. For those of you that know or ever have made video content, know how fun it is to edit. It takes so freaking long. Anyways, like you heard in the intro, we're going to talk about some stories, maybe some current events that have taken place over the last few weeks. We've touched on some stuff already. Actually, that wasn't even an episode. I talked about some terrorism, how to prepare, that kind of stuff for events. If you want to check out that video, again, it's not part of the catalog of the podcast, but it is available on Rumble and YouTube. I didn't publish it on, if you're listening to normal audio podcast, whatever, it's not on there, but it is in the video form. Check that out. But like I was mentioning before I was so rudely interrupted by myself, the 2A community is so full of interesting people and interesting stories. It makes the 2A world go round. We have liars, we have cheaters, we have thieves, we have, and then we have the exact polar opposite. Then we also have stories that bring joy to the hearts of those who love our freedoms. Yes, in this episode, we're going to kind of touch on all three of those things and maybe a little bit more. So let's jump right into it. So first off, we're going to talk about the ATF director. Now, I know many of you are very fond of Stephen Dettelbach, who still is the current director of the ATF, or the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. Now, Mr. Dettelbach is renowned for his prowess and intellect when it comes to firearms. Over the last, I think, 5 years that he's been in office, he, well, according to him, has done many things and curbed gun violence and got control of post-pandemic violence, and all this blah, 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 right? Until he went on Face the Nation, I think is what it was, him and his crackpot #1 detective investigator guy, which you've seen that video. I think I've shared, well, again, if you're not on my YouTube channel, you wouldn't have seen the video, but I made a mockery video of that amazing interview. Which really dialed in and cemented what we already knew about Stephen Dettelbach and how he's running the rogue agency. It just really brought the fine oiled machine to light. Anyway, why are we talking about Mr. Dettelbach? Well, if you haven't heard, good old Stevie Pooh is going to be resigning. In fact, he sent his official resignation to Congress. And let's take a look at it real quick. So yeah, let's take a peek at Mr. Diddle Pepper's resignation later here. And I'll do my best to read this. Kind of hard to see if you're watching this on the tubes or on Rumble. I'll read it to you. So this is dated December 30th, 2024, to obviously the president, who is his boss. Says, Dear Mr. President, pursuant to the memorandum of presidential appointees on guidelines on letters of resignation dated December 18th? Wow, so it was a lot longer than I thought. Anyway, December 18th, 2024, I hereby tender my resignation as director of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, effective January 18, 2025. It was the honor of my professional career to serve at the ATF in your administration. As you said with nominating me to be the ATF director, the mission of this agency isn't controversial, it's public safety. I now see the brave, talented people at the ATF live out your words for years, and we have realized results. Under your leadership, and of the Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General, we met head on the challenge of a historic spike in violent crime coming out of the pandemic. As I leave the ATF, the country has experienced 2 years of a historic decrease in violent crime rates. Including drops in firearm-related crime. That progress did not occur by accident. The heroic, talented, and hard-working people at the ATF, along with many partners, fought hard and risked everything to gain that ground. And Americans are better off for it. Thank you for the privilege of calling the men and women of the ATF my colleagues and calling you my president. Signed, sincerely yours, Stephen M. Dinglehopper. So old Mr. Dettelbach here, thank goodness, decided he was going to resign. He decided, maybe it's time I give up my talented and well-paying job that I love so much. I just hate to leave because I've done so much. Maybe it's just time for me to quit. But, I can't. When's a good date to do that? He's probably thinking to himself. I know the perfect date. I think I'm going to do it January 18 of 2025. Well, that's a coincidence because now that there's a new Congress and a new president coming in, new old president, President Trump, if you've been living under a stone, that Trump won the election. It was certified the other day. By the way, a lot of hilarious videos came out of that vote certification on the 6th. Hilarious. But he's planning on retiring. He's just going to leave the agency in the good hands of nobody, apparently, because he was the bomb, right? He even said that it was under his watch that he cut crime and out of the pandemic and all-time low in gun crime rates. But yet, if you look at any of the left-wing stuff, gun crime is at an all-time high. A little bit of confusion there, apparently. Or they're all lies. I mean, that could be it, too. But why the 18th of January, you say? Could it have something to do with President Trump coming into office the 20th of January? And Trump saying, we're cleaning house. We're getting rid of these worthless air vampires inside all of Congress and all these worthless agencies, and the ATF is on the chopping block. And maybe Mr. Dettelbach figured, I don't want to get fired and have my half-assed reputation become quarter-assed. I'll just leave. I'll just resign. I can keep whatever pension I need to keep. I save face, whatever face that may be. Yep, that's probably more to do with it. Old little Doodlefinger is retiring because he doesn't want to face the Trump administration, Doge, Congress, and more. Like I'll tell you about something else that's coming up that's fantastic. Maybe I'll save that for last, actually, because I want to end on a high note. I don't want to end on a low note. I'll save that for last. Put a pin in it. We're going to tell you a story that's going to be happy and joyous that might make a little bit more sense to Mr. Dungfinger's resignation. Because he's a peach. And according to him, in his own introspective, clear, and honest view of himself, he's amazing. Or he sucks. I kind of think it's probably the latter. I think he's probably really, really terrible because, again, between listening to all of his testimonies before Congress, his news, his interviews on the media, his lack of leadership, his Weasley way of not answering easy questions that will pin him down on comments that he's made before, and pin the ATF on things that they should be doing that aren't, or aren't doing the things they should, whatever way you want to look at it. This is a great thing. This is so awesome. Now, I know all of us would love to see Brandon Herrera as the next chief director, I guess that's what it is, director of the ATF. We would love to see Brandon Herrera. Is it going to happen? Probably not. But can you imagine if it did? Fantastic. That would be so rad. AKs for everyone.
It's been a long time coming.
Or he'll walk in there, tell everybody they're fired, and throw a Molotov cocktail against the wall. Who knows? It'd be amazing either way. But we can all dream. Some of those things that bring the 2A happiness, stories like this. Oh, Stephen Dettelbach, you little devil, you. Sneaking out of your office before you can get fired. Don't let the door hit your ass on the way out, because it would probably damage your face, honestly. Let's be real. Keep up the good work, Dumbledore. Godspeed.
Well, bye.
You know, I was going to hold this next little segment till the end, but I have another really good story that I'm going to hold to the end, because this one really does correlate to what we're talking about. Along with the ATF, I have to look at my show notes here. Please bear with me. Along with the ATF director leaving because he's horrible, there's been some really good news. There's been some awesome things taking place. Let's share this. Let's share this with you real quick here. Now, I know we've talked about Mr. Eric Burleson. He's a Republican representative from Missouri. See, I had to look at my show notes again because I'm an idiot. So Mr. Burleson, he is well known for his disdain for the ATF, which again, this might have something to do with Stephen Dinglehopper leaving the agency, because there might not be an agency, by the middle of next year. So I want you to check this out. This isn't new. This has been around. In fact, they've tried this more than once. But Mr. Burleson here, he has decided he's going to reintroduce the bill to abolish the ATF, which so piffily named, it's so exquisitely named, is the Abolish the ATF Act. Pretty simple. In fact, this bill is only like a sentence that says, this bill is hereby to abolish the ATF. So something to that nature. Pretty amazing. So we see here that Mr. Burleson from Missouri, Lauren Boebert from Colorado, they both kind of teamed up and they said, let's get rid of this worthless agency, which is music to our ears if we are really pro 2A. The Constitution does not give us anything. It restricts the government from taking things away from us. So let's see what it says here. The ATF is an emblematic. Boy, I cannot read. I was homeschooled, I hope you know. The ATF is emblematic of the deep state bureaucracy that believes it can infringe on constitutional liberties without consequence, said Mr. Burleson. If this agency cannot uphold its duty to serve the people within the framework of the Constitution, it has no place in government. Amen. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. This is amazing. Now, hopefully, this new and energized Congress can say, yeah, Mr. Burleson's 100% correct. Let's get rid of this dog of agency. Dog. There's a joke in there with the ATF and dogs, I'm sure. You'll figure it out and let me know. And Mrs. Boebert said this, I cannot imagine any other circumstances or administration where the ATF serves as an ally to the Second Amendment and law-abiding firearms owners across America. As co-chair of the Congressional Second Amendment Caucus, I'm eager to continue this effort with Representative Burleson to defend our constitutional rights. The ATF should be abolished before they eventually abolish our Second Amendment. Thank you.
You can do it!
So the ATF, this is a good article. Let's see, where did I even get this article? I'll link it to the show notes, by the way. Oh, that's what it is. It came from this KZRG news channel, radio guy, whatever. But I'll link this in the show notes. You can look at this. This is a pretty good little story. So the ATF has been viciously attacking our Second Amendment rights since the 30s, mind you. Now, they've been, well, okay, maybe not the 30s, but you get what I'm saying. Is it the 30s? Or was it the 60s when the ATF came in? Regardless, I am having brain fog. I'm old. I'm feeble. Maybe I should be director of the ATF. But they've been infringing on our rights. They have been interpreting the Constitution their own way in a rogue agency without any oversight, with complete, what's the word that they give them? The government just gives them the will to do whatever they wish, and the blessing, right? They get the Pope's blessing, do whatever they want to our rights. And they have been destroying them ever since. The Constitution is clear. The Constitution does not grant us anything. It restricts the will of the government upon the people. God grants us rights. The Constitution restrains government from taking those rights away. And it's been a rogue agency for far too long. Yeah. Guess what? Reagan? Bush? Yep. Clinton? Bush? Oh, yeah. Obama? 100%. Clinton? Yep. The last guy we had, what's his name? Biden? Oh, boy, yeah. Every one of those presidents nibbles away like the little mouse, right? You give a mouse a cookie, what happens? The ATF is the same way. And the anti-gun extremist parties, by the way, that's on both sides of the aisle. There are anti-gunners on both sides of the aisle. We're going to be talking about that in a second. They're happy to nibble away at your rights that they didn't grant. That they're jealous. I think that's really what it boils down to. The government is jealous that it didn't grant any sort of rights. Let me bring this back to the real page so you can see my sexy face. The government is jealous that only God can grant rights, so they're eager to take them away and then throw us some crumbs. Don't buy into the old civics class that your kids take these days. No. This agency, along with many others, have been flippantly rat-holing your rights away. So then we see Mr. Burleson and Ms. Boebert and other congresspersons, we have to be correct here, working towards saving our Second Amendment rights because we need those rights. The only reason why we haven't seen complete tyranny is because we have the ability to keep the government in check. Yeah, I know. They have F-16s and missiles and blah, blah. So, the Taliban had goats and rags and AKs. Guess what? We were stuck in that hole for 20 years. The American people are a lot different than the desert dwellers, by the way. We have veterans who swore an oath to the country. We have current members in the military who swore an oath to protect this country from all enemies, foreign and domestic. We have citizens that hunt animals for fun, that dress in camouflage and hide in the woods for fun in bitter cold before the sun comes up for fun. Yeah. I don't think the enemies to our rights really comprehend that. But I also don't think that we believe what they say when they say it. Does the ATF need to go? Maybe. I don't know. I need to dive into that a little bit deeper. Is there some validity to the agency? Yeah, there probably could be, but it could be drastically pruned down. Drastically, if not gone completely. Because in all honesty, when the ATF goes and investigates a crime, what do? They call the local law enforcement. They have not really field agents, but they don't contract either, but they have people deposited in inside of local jurisdictions that go to ATF's trainings. They're like official ambassadors type things for the ATF that work for local agencies. So they're just pulling from the local agencies anyway. So, and this is exactly what Burleson talks about, not in this article, but I've heard him talk about it before, is like, they are just pulling people from local investigating units anyways. Why are we double dipping and wasting twice as much money when we can really still rely on there with maybe some federal help, but drastically less? President Trump says when he comes to office, he is going to be firing people, firing lots of people, because there is so much pork, there's so much waste in government. We are hemorrhaging money as a country. We are losing tons of money. And then we're giving in money and munitions and arms to other countries, but we don't give a crap about local veterans and homeless people that are homeless from hurricanes and storms, that they're so worried about global warming and all these extra storms that the global warming's causing. But screw those people that don't have places to live. Yeah, sure, it's sub-zero right now, but they'll figure it out. But we really need to send this money to another country. Hello? Are you listening? It's agencies that are gone rogue. It's politicians that don't give a damn about us, that let agencies do whatever they want with very little superstition and probably a little bit of guidance from these people as well, to just diminish the rights that God gave you, not the government. I know, some of you might not believe in God. Fine, whatever. It's not from the government. Government cannot give us anything. They can only protect the stuff that exists, and they are not allowed to infringe on it more than they're supposed to within the restraints of the Constitution. I don't care if you don't believe me. Look it up. Just study. Study some more. I know I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I don't pretend to be, but I'm not the only one saying this kind of stuff either. Anyways, happy day. That brings joy. That brings happiness when we think, the ATF could easily be gone away with. Goodbye. Hut, 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 hut. Goodbye.
Hut, 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 hut. Bye-bye.
We'll see. Will this go anywhere? Maybe. Probably not. Probably won't go as far as we want it to. Does the agency at least need to be pruned down and reined in? Yeah, 100%. Chevron deference is gone. So why are they making rules that they're not supposed to? All those rules should come through Congress. That's it. The Judiciary Committee, the Department of Justice, all those need to come together. They need to make some rules, and the ATF needs to stick to those rules and no more. No more interpretation. This is black and white. That's what you're supposed to do. At the very minimum, that should be what happens with the ATF. We shall see. Hashtag Brandon Herrera, Director of ATF. LOL, smile face. All right, this episode is going swimmingly, so I don't want to destroy the pace of what we're doing right now, because I feel like I'm just on a roll. So let's keep it going. Oh man, that was a good radio voice. It almost sounded like Casey Kasem. Tim Kennedy. Oh, Tim.
Yeah, Timmy!
Now, if you've been still hiding under this boulder or shoving your face in the sand, you know what's going on with old Timbo.
Timmy!
So, you've heard rumblings. What's the name of that podcast? Anti-Hero Podcast, is that what it's called? He wrote this book called Scars and Stripes. Talked about all sorts of stuff. I'm not going to get too far into this section of the story. Turns out, it's probably bullshit. He stole the title of the book. He's made up stories all along. In fact, very recently, Tim said that, previously said, every tour I've been on, I got a medal for valor, and I did all this cool stuff, and I always was awarded something special. That dude shouldn't go near water with his uniform on, because he won't be able to swim with all the medals he's got.
Timmy.
Well, turns out he's been a little bit exposed about that, and he had to make an apology saying, okay, so I didn't really receive any medals. No V for Valor, no Purple Hearts. I didn't really tell the truth about that. What else has he been lying about? Well, we're going to get to that because he doesn't really tell the truth about a lot of things, it sounds like. I could be wrong. I don't know him personally. I'm sure he's a cool guy. He could totally kick my ass. But nonetheless, he has a little bit of a problem with kind of stretching the truth out more than it actually is. Allegedly. So we find out he put out a statement saying, okay, I didn't really get all these medals. Turns out in the book, he says all sorts of things that may not be completely accurate. And the Anti-Hero podcast goes all through that. I'm not going to steal their thunder with that. If you want to listen to 5.5 hours of podcast, there's stuff in that it's actually kind of interesting. Yes, Tim is a hell of a fighter. He's a good shot. But I'm a little concerned about some of the other stuff that he's involved in. This is going to ruffle some feathers. Besides what you think about Tim Kennedy. This is going to cause... Now, this is not what I'm saying isn't new. This isn't groundbreaking. This isn't something crazy, amazing, and superfluous. Maybe superfluous. But old Timmy... Okay, let me back up a little bit. This is what I think. This is just a theory. This is what I think is happening. Now, like I said earlier, this might ruffle some feathers and make some people unhappy with me. I think Tim Kennedy is considered an asset to Department of Defense. Not like an asset as a, maybe an asshat, but not as an asset as somebody we can send to the front lines and he's going to be super awesome. He's going to kill all the bad guys. But more like we need a tool to recruit people because our numbers are down. So what are we going to do? Now, this ties in, this is where I get this theory from. Let me back this up a little bit. Again, this is going to make some people unhappy. Marcus Luttrell. Now, some of you already know where I'm going with this. Marcus Luttrell, I can't remember the name of the podcast, but I watched segments of this podcast where he stated that he had some handlers with the CIA and the Department of Defense that used him to embellish the story that we know as Lone Survivor in his book. It wasn't quite accurate, but they embellished the story to make him look more than he was to get people excited about joining the military.
Allegedly.
But apparently the story of Marcus Luttrell, allegedly, is not as accurate as what it's portrayed in the book and in the movies. And Tim Kennedy kind of has the same feeling, if you will, kind of the same storyline. That's kind of where I get this feeling with Tim. That he's used as propaganda, if you will, to make the military sound more exciting, to get more people involved, because they can be heroes like him. I could be wrong. Okay, this is just my theory. I'm not discounting. I know he served in the military. I'm not saying it's stolen valor. I'm not saying that he didn't go overseas and serve. He did. But what I am saying that maybe the things that he shared in his book aren't quite reality. Now, again, the Anti-Hero podcast is going into that, dissecting that book, talking to people that were there, and finding out that the stuff is not quite accurate. Or in other words, Timmy isn't telling the truth.
Ooh, Timmy.
Allegedly. So if Timmy is inaccurate with a book that he talks about, the stories he tells inside this book, if that's not true, What else isn't true that he's sharing? So a while back, Tim went on a podcast. It was what was the name of the cyclist that got busted for steroids? Armstrong. Went on his podcast, the Armstrong podcast, talking about gun control. Yep. If you guys haven't heard this story, this is what happened.
Yeah, I think about it all the time.
Yeah.
And then we think about what the solution is. That's what I think about. When was the last time
you said gun control?
Yeah, I believe gun control is a massive solution.
Good.
I do not think that.
I didn't expect you to say that.
I don't think a 19-year-old kid should have access to an AR-15. I don't think, he should be able to buy a pistol. Fortunately, he can't. But if you can't buy a pistol, how can you buy a semi-automatic AR? Mm-hmm. That doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, so are you pro-gun or are you pro-gun control? Or does your moral compass have so much leeway that you will say whatever you want to say or whatever fits the bill of the people you're talking to make them feel warm and fuzzy? That's also a form of lying. That's deception at the least, because you don't stand for what you 100% believe. Now, AmmoLand, one of those organizations, questioned Kennedy about this, and I watched the interview. It's kind of long. I'll see if I can link it to the show notes as well. I mean, I have it in some of my stuff archived pages here opened up, but they questioned him about that. Said, "Hey, Armstrong asked you this. This is what you said. What are you talking about?" And he went on this language-filled tirade about, well, if you don't effing know what I'm talking about, then you're effing stupid, and maybe you shouldn't effing own a gun, and blah, blah, blah. And then he tells Story, that's not what I believe. That's not what I said. This is what I said. And she's like, well, this is what you said. And she reads him like verbatim the quote. And he's like, that's not what I meant about gun control. Well, what do you mean? I mean, everybody should own guns. Okay, well, what about age restrictions? 16, 18, who gives an F? This is what I mean. And then he kind of turns this corner in this discussion about being in the Middle East and about how Taliban raped these people and like all this stuff. And it's called deflection, by the way. When you're in an uncomfortable conversation, you kind of, well, what about these people? Look, this is this story when I was over here. But according to the book, now that we look back in hindsight, is that even true? Did he see some Taliban doing bad things to the whole village of people? He said it was like 9 guys. They raped the whole village and killed them all. 9 people? Yeah, sure, okay. And the same dudes, I went to another village. These same guys came in and Grandpa grabbed a gun and shot at them and they ran away. That's my stance on gun control. What does that mean, dude? What does that even mean? It's deflection. It's an uncomfortable point of his argument that he couldn't substantiate because he didn't know how to back out of that hole. And so he has to fortify what he left. And because he has contracts with Pro 2A companies and blah, like all this stuff. By the way, I think it was Mark Twain that said, tell the truth and you won't have to remember a thing. Pretty simple. Fast forward to a few years later. Tim Kennedy was on Joe Rogan. Same thing, gun control comes up. He talks about gun control, rah, rah, rah. I'm a cool guy. I'll punch you in the face. That kind of stuff. Well, then he comes and says, hey, I'm part of this new organization that me and my buddy made. It's called Double Check. And what it is we help gun sellers do a double background check because Nick sucks. And so I don't like all these people getting guns that shouldn't have guns. And it's like, well, and by the way, that organization, that's not what he said in the podcast, but that organization supports 100% red flag laws, which I don't know about you, that is a form of gun control. It's also a violation of the Fourth Amendment. But Timmy, hey, I'm part of this organization. By the way, he's also partners with a guy, what's his name? Jody Weiss. Jody Weiss was a Chicago cop that is majorly anti-gun. Part of the same organization called Double Check. Look it up. I'll link the organization through show notes. I tried to find an About Us link on that website. Surprisingly, there's nothing there, but there's some Facebook stuff that you can look up there too. Tim, just tell the damn truth, bro. I know you've got these big financial contracts with these big organizations, which there's one more thing I'm going to bring up in a second with a big organization. But here's my problem, man. If you're lying about being in Afghanistan, if you're lying about stuff in the book, if you're lying about medals that you didn't get awarded, if you're lying about an organization that you created that is actually a backdoor for gun control, what else are you lying about? And how can we give you credibility? And how can we believe you when you talk your way out of things? Which brings me to my next point. I spend way too much time on YouTube. Way too much time. And I watch a lot of gun tubers content. I watched Johnny B, which I find he's awesome and hilarious. I watch the Armed Attorney, Andrew, whatever Andrew's last name is. And Mr. Guns and Gear and all these Guns and Gadgets, right? I watch all these as much as I can because I enjoy them, honestly. Flannel Daddy, right? Like all these guys are fun to watch. They make great content. But there's something, if you've watched GunTube enough, you realize that a few years ago, all these dudes were sponsored by, guess what? This is going to piss some more people off, so hate me if you want, I guess. Honestly, this could put some of my financial stuff in jeopardy in a way, too. All these dudes were sponsored by USCCA. And if you've watched recently, a lot of these guys have come out with videos saying, we no longer support USCCA. Let me put a quick caveat right here. I do not hate the USCCA. I love their curriculum. I think their stuff, when I teach concealed carry classes, their stuff is the best that I've seen. Because most of the other stuff doesn't exist. Like the NRA's concealed carry stuff is dog shit. It's so bad. USCCA's content is it's good. It's clear, it's concise, it's up to date, it's easy to teach the principles that they show. I like it. This isn't a direct dig on USCCA, but it all comes right back to Timmy. So USCCA, so these dudes have dropped, I think, kind of sponsorship with USCCA. Did I say that? Boy, I slurred my speech. These dudes have dropped their sponsorships with USCCA. Some of them, like Johnny B was saying, was quite a while. Again, I have nothing against the USCCA, but let me just share their concerns with you. So USCCA is considered insurance, right? But part of USCCA's policy is if it's a criminal, if you're charged criminally, they cannot defend you, or they won't defend you, and you may have to pay that money back. As far as I understand, I could be wrong. There was a few cases in the past. I can't remember the gal's name. I want to say it was in Chicago. No, it couldn't have been Chicago. Anyway, it was a self-defense case, but when the USCCA attorney looked at it, he figured that it looked like it wasn't self-defense. So they backed out their policy. They canceled her. She's spent all this money up to that point, paid her memberships, right? But the USCCA did not cover her. Now, apparently, allegedly, that's not the only story like that out there. Again, I have nothing against the USCCA. This is just some concerns I have and some concerns maybe you need to look at. I'm not saying cancel your memberships. I'm not saying call them and tell them that they suck. I'm not suggesting that at all. But this ties back to Timmy. Timmy, I don't know if I can trust Tim Kennedy. That means his judgment's in question. And if organizations like USCCA are willing to hire Timmy, does that not put the integrity of that company in question? I'm just asking the question to you guys. It's just like if, okay, so I'm a trim carpenter. I own my own business. Now, if I hired a known person that is not good with children, if you know what I mean, and it's known, right? Very, very prominent individual in some way, shape, or form. I'm not going to be able to take that guy into homes where I know there's going to be kids around. It's going to hurt my business. It's going to tarnish the integrity of my company, like it or not. Tattoos used to be the same way years ago. More people are willing to hire folks with tattoos now. But I can remember a time that if you're covered in tattoos, you're not going to get a job because it tarnishes the business's image of being, upstanding or whatever, because there was a stigma tied into tattoos years ago. You know what I'm saying? You get what I'm putting down here? If organizations are willing to hire somebody that doesn't hold the integrity that the organization proposes to, that kind of diminishes the company's integrity. Am I wrong? I can't trust Tim with anything he says because it's all in question now. I don't feel like he's trustworthy. Is he a good dude? Yeah, probably. He's probably a cool guy. Again, he's tough. He could probably kick my ass. I know he can outshoot me. He definitely makes more money than I do. Sure, he's a cool guy. But there's a lot of cool guys out there that do dumb shit. And I'm kind of, I don't know. I don't know. Am I wrong? What do you guys think? Am I wrong in this outward look into Tim, his life, and who he associates with? Am I wrong about the USCCA and them tarnishing their integrity by having people like Tim being a part of the organization? Tell me where I'm wrong. I told you, this is probably going to make some people mad. And because I'm an instructor with the USCCA, this could hurt me too. I'm not bashing the USCCA. I'm not saying the USCCA sucks. But I'm saying if you hire a guy that is part of an organization that's for red flag laws and openly has promoted gun confiscation, gun control on other forms, other podcasts, I'm just saying that doesn't really jive. Hate me. What am I going to do? What are we going to do? So I told you I wanted to end on a high note, and this is where we're going to end. This news is actually fantastic. Let's just kind of get away from the Debbie Downer type of stuff for a second, and let's talk about some great news. Some stuff that brings me so much joy, so much happiness, more than ice cream. I would say more than chocolate, but I don't really like chocolate. This stuff is awesome, and it makes me happy, and I hope it makes you happy too. So the FBI does, they keep track of the NICS background checks, which is great. If you've purchased a gun from a dealer, you know that you have to perform you fill out the 4473, which is the form for purchasing a firearm. If you don't have a concealed weapons permit for some reason or whatsoever, or some states still do the background check, they take your information, they call NICS. The NICS background check does all sorts of stuff, or you can do it online, which is way easier, by the way. If you're a dealer and you're doing phone call NICS background checks, what are you doing? If you do it online, you don't have to talk to people. It's so much nicer. Anyway, they compile all this data and they put it on these wonderful spreadsheets for nerds like me to look at and enjoy. I want you to check this out. Let's see here. Oh, yes. Look at that. In fact, let me pull this over a little bit. Well, I'm going to have to shrink this down. Pardon my effrontery. So look at this out. So this is the NICS firearms check for the year, months and years. So as the column goes right to left, that's, months, January, February, March, and so on. I know this is probably pretty hard to see on your screen. Maybe it's not. When I look at my filming screen, it's just tiny. That's what she said. But let's look at this. Let's look at this data. So this is historical data all the way from 1998, from November 98 to current down here at the bottom. So the total number, by the way, I don't know if you can see the total number since the NICS system was incorporated, is 500,100,000. 500. Okay. Numbers are hard for homeschooled kids, just so you know.
And on the third day, God created the Remington bolt-action rifle so that man could fight the dinosaurs and the homosexuals. Amen.
501,124,081 guns through the background check since 1988. 98. That's a lot of guns, bro.
Those are rookie numbers in this racket.
That's pretty sweet. I love this country. But we can look month by month. I wanted to try and find a bar graph for this, but this is the only data that I could find as fast as I looked, because I didn't look very quickly, so I just decided to do it this way. So, again, starting at 1998, November, December, that total amount for 98 was almost 900,000 guns. But we can go through the years and months. So, but I just want to look at 2024, which is this bottom column. In fact, let me zoom this in a little bit more for you here, so we can just talk about this bottom column here. All right, 2024. That's this bottom row here, okay? 2024, January, there was 2,200,000. It's hard to see, 237,000 background checks. February is 2.4 million. We'll just round the numbers a little bit. February, there was almost 2.7 million. March, there was 2.3, looks like. April, 2.1. May, 2.0. June, 2.1. July, 2.2. All the way down to December. Do you want me to go every month? All right. I mean, January, February, March. It's not marked. I have to count by. It's a good thing I paid attention in homeschool, right? January, February, March, April, May, June, July, 2.1. August, 2.2. September, 2.1. October, 2.3. November, 2.5. Almost 2.6 million in November. Pretty sweet. Then December of 2024, there were 2.7. In fact, I'll give you the actual number. 2,757,367 background checks just in December. Now, that doesn't equate to there was 2.7 million guns sold, because some of those background checks were multiple firearms on those forms. I know that because I know people that buy more than one gun on a background check form, right? So I'll have to look and see the total number of guns sold, but it's nice to see that, hey, 2.7 million background checks performed in December of 2024. It was a good Christmas for somebody. The total number of guns sold in all of 2024 is 28,097,205. 28 million guns. Or no, background checks. 28 million background checks, bro. That's craziness. I had to double check the number. That is good news. Those numbers are a little low, but hey, we'll take it. We'll take it. That's my phone, by the way. See? Oh, now you don't make the noise when I push on you. It's because the phone cable's stuck around here. Pardon me. Yeah, 2.7 million guns. How cool is that? Background checks. I did it again. Background checks. Man, that's a lot of background checks. I love this country. I cannot tell you how excited I am to know that I live in a country where we are free to speak how we want. We are free to worship how we may. We are free to assemble. We're free to petition the government. We're free to defend ourselves. We're free to not have people come into our house and search without any kind of warrant. We're free to not house troops in our house. We're free to face our accusers. We're free to a speedy trial. Like, there's so many things granted in the Bill of Rights that the founding fathers saw they had to fight against. Like, the only reason that stuff is in the Bill of Rights is because all those things were happening to them back in the day. And they're like, hey, this cannot happen in our country because the king is a lunatic. And we don't want kings that are lunatics in this country. We want leadership that is bound by the will of the people. So we have our Constitution. Yes, the Constitution has been interpreted in too many different ways, I feel. Maybe 2025 begins an administration that cares. I hope. I mean, we voted. Those of us that voted for the guy, that was the dream, that he was going to start cleaning up a mess. Could it go completely sideways? It could. Let's be real. I mean, he still could be not the guy that we hoped he was. It's true. Could be. But things are looking good at this point. So we got to keep the will. We got to keep the hope up. But that doesn't mean that we take our foot off the gas pedal and holding those who represent us accountable. We got to keep doing that. If, just like this ATF bill that we talked about earlier, if you want that to pass, you better get on the old phone and talk to those who you hired to represent you and say, look at the bill, let's pass it, and let's make things happen. The same thing happens at city levels, at county levels, and at state levels. Those people that represent you, maybe you didn't vote for them, but guess what? They still represent you, and you have to make your voice heard. That's the way not a democracy works, but a way that republic works. There's a difference. This is not mob rule. It's a representative government for the people and by the people, responsible to the people. Pretty simple. Pretty simple. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know I get a little in the weeds at times. I know I get on these rants almost every time, but I can't help it. Once I get something in my head, I have to spit it out, and that's just the way it is. If you like this episode, please like it, share it with your friends, leave a comment, whether it be on YouTube, Rumble, or wherever you're listening to the podcast. That helps me a bunch. I have a goal for 2025 to hit 1,000 subscribers. And I'm not mean total. I mean 1,000 subscribers on YouTube or 1,000 subscribers on Rumble. Please help me reach that goal. It doesn't cost you anything if you just like and follow the show on either of those platforms. That would be amazing. It would mean the world to me. I'm not even lying. Like that means a lot to me. It lets me know that what I'm doing, I'm not alone, the way I think, for starters. That what I do resonates with people. I know I got listeners, but a lot of those listeners don't follow the show. And I would appreciate if you did. Another way, if you want to support the show, you can jump on rangemindedpodcast.com. I don't get paid for what I do here. I do this for free on my own dime. In fact, it does not for free for me. Like it costs me money to run the website, to produce these videos, all this stuff. It costs me money. If you want to support the show, there's lots of ways you can do it. The easiest way to financially support the show is to jump on the website, rangemindedpodcast.com. Go to the shop, buy some patches. I love patches. You can see from the wall behind me. I just love those stupid PVC patches. And because I love them so much, I started making some, and they're available on the website. If you want to financially support the show, which would be amazing, you could jump to my Linktree, which I think is, it's definitely on my X account. Maybe I should link that to my... Actually, it might be linked on my webpage. I just had to redo my webpage. It's a long story. We're not going to get into it. Go to Linktree. There's a place. My Patreon's on there. You can share there. That'd be great. I love you guys. I really want you guys to know how much I care about you. Even though I don't see you guys, I do care about you, because we are all children of liberty and we live in this country together. And it is so important. If you live outside this country, fight for your freedoms anyways. It's all good. You are meant to be free. Be as free as you can, legally. Anyways, don't forget, you got to take somebody shooting, and always, always, always stay range-minded. See you guys.
Timmy!
Shut up, bitch!